She called it a surprise. I called it something else. When I came home that Friday, her energy was already wound tight, buzzing in a way that wasn't excitement so much as performance. 2 suitcases sat by the door, mine included, already zipped and ready. She held up the hotel confirmation like it was proof of devotion. I tried to match her smile, but the edges of it scraped me raw. "Pack light," she said, though she had clearly packed for me already. My shirts folded, my toothbrush gone from its spot, my life rearranged without a word. I asked the obvious question, "When did you book this?" but she dismissed it with a wave, that little half-laugh she uses when she doesn't want to linger on details. She leaned against the doorway, eyes darting from my reaction, as though this wasn't about the trip itself, but about capturing me in the right light, in the right mood. The drive was a blur. She controlled the playlist, she controlled the stops, she even controlled the small talk, filling the air with trivia about the hotel spot and some scenic lookout she had read about online. My responses grew shorter as her control expanded, but she didn't notice. Or maybe she noticed and leaned harder. At one point, she pulled my keyring from the console, spinning the silver compass keychain she had given me years ago, her little "so you'll never lose your way" gift. The compass twirled wildly in her hand, never pointing steady, and I stared at it longer than I should have. It felt like an inside joke that had outlived the joke part. When we arrived, the hotel staff greeted us by name. She had arranged it all, roses on the bed, champagne on ice, cameras ready for the curated couple moment. And yet the whole thing smelled rehearsed, like she had staged a show for an audience I couldn't see. She asked me to pose for a photo in front of the fountain, her phone angled carefully, her smile polished. I stood there with my arm around her, but inside, something nodded. It wasn't romance. It was theatre. And I was starting to realize I hadn't been cast as the leading man. The weekend away came and went, but it didn't dissolve the unease. If anything, the ride home left me with more silence than answers. She leaned her head against the window, humming to herself, the compass keychain dangling from her finger as if it were hers to hold, not mine. The needle quivered with every bump in the road. I stared at it instead of her, because when I did look at her, I caught that rehearsed brightness again, eyes too sharp, smile too careful. I asked more questions, the kind anyone would ask. Why this hotel? Why now? Why book it without a word? Her responses slid across the surface like stones skipping water, light, dismissive, quick to sink if I pressed too hard. "Why do you always need to analyze everything?" she asked, still twirling the compass. "Don't overthink, just follow me." That line dug in deep. It wasn't a suggestion, it was an instruction. And I realized she had repeated it twice now, each time when I came too close to something she didn't want named. I told myself I'd drop it, but later that night, while we unpacked, I brought up the cost. "Rooms like that aren't cheap," I said, running a thumb over the paper-thin receipt she had tucked in the bag. Her smile cracked. Not broken, just hairline. She laughed a fraction too loud, too fast, then snapped that I was ruining the mood. It wasn't the money. It was the defense. Our wall slammed down where none should have been. Over the next few days, little things multiplied. She guarded her phone with new intensity, thumb hovering over the screen even when she wasn't scrolling. She lingered longer in the shower, music playing louder to drown out whatever calls or messages came in. And every time I asked a simple question, what she was working on, who she was meeting, her tone shifted. Not curious, not warm, but barbed. As though my asking was intrusion, not interest. The compass stayed with me through it all, heavy in my pocket, cooled against my palm. Once, she caught me spinning it absent-mindedly and said, "Funny you still keep that old thing. I thought you'd lose it by now." She meant it as a joke, maybe, but it landed like a warning. And that's when it clicked. The trip hadn't been romance. It had been distraction. Something else was moving beneath the surface, and she needed me looking the other way. The printout wasn't hidden. It lay between a grocery flyer and a coupon. I almost tossed it. If the paper hadn't snapped my thumb with a micro tear, I might have missed it. The header showed a bank we hadn't used in years. Below it, a withdrawal I didn't recognize. The date at the top matched the morning we checked in at the hotel. I stood at the counter a long time. The numbers weren't dramatic, but they were exact down to the cent, and the memo line read, "Guest incidentals pre-auth." We don't pre-authorize at hotels like that. They take a card and you never see a slip. She came in from her run and tossed her keys. The silver compass keychain slid and spun. She reached for water, breath still shallow. I didn't lift the paper. I held it flat with 2 fingers. "Did you reopen this account?" I asked. She glanced down too fast. Then the bright, airy smile. "Oh, that points adjustments," she said. "You know how banks are." She set the glass on a dry ring. "They offered me a retention perk, no big deal. It should have been explainable. People reopen accounts. Banks make errors. Trips get messy on paper. The reasonable part of me wanted to file it under administrative noise. But the date wouldn't stop humming, and the amount matched the number I'd seen flicker across the screen at the hotel bar when she angled her phone away a split second I dismissed. I folded the printout and slid it into the drawer with takeout menus and warranty cards, not hidden, just preserved. I don't hoard proof. I catalogue patterns. For 2 days I waited for something ordinary to explain it away. A correction email, a refund, a casual hello that bank called. Instead, I got cheerful non-answers. She stayed light. She asked about my meetings a lot, like she needed timestamps. When I told her I'd be late Thursday, she circled the time on the calendar in big playful loops, then snapped a picture so I don't forget. I checked our main account and matched the hotel's posted charge to the room rate. Clean. But the incidentals paper kept flashing like a hazard light. If it was legit, why did it hit an old account? Why the exactness? Why a memo written like a field someone wanted visible? That night she sat on the couch with a blanket over her knees, the compass keychain on the table. She scrawled with that half smile I used to mistake for peace. I picked up the compass and leveled it. You ever miss that bank? I asked, half a joke. She didn't look up. Not really, she said. Then, too quickly, 1T. I should have dropped it. Instead, I said, it's odd the memo says pre-auth, most places batched that out. She tightened the blanket, eyes on her phone. Babe, please, it's nothing. Though please was new. Polite on the surface, but carrying a warning you hear only if you know the frequency. I nodded like I accepted it. Then I went to the office, pulled the drawer, and took a photo of the printout front and back, top corner where the tier lived. I created a folder called Map. Before bed she tucked herself under my arm. We needed that trip, she murmured. I stared at the ceiling and replayed the weekend, the lobby greeting, the champagne, how just follow me. If love is a path, then the markers matter. And the first marker had paper on it. I didn't accuse. I didn't decide. I let the clue sit beside us in the dark, as quiet as a compass in my pocket, small, reflective, pointing somewhere I didn't want to go. Her tablet betrayed her. Not because I was snooping, because technology misfires when you least expect it. One evening, I logged into our streaming account on my laptop, and suddenly her synced messages appeared as a banner at the bottom corner of the screen. At first, I thought it was a glitch, random notification spilling over. Then the lines scrolled in, one after another, stacked like receipts you don't want but can't throw away. The first message was almost laughable in its casual cruelty. He actually believed the hotel was my idea. My chest locked. Another followed seconds later. He even asked about costs. I told him to relax. He bought it. There was a thread of late-night chatter, her words glittering with private amusement at my expense. The name at the top wasn't familiar, though I recognized the rhythm of someone she trusted. My pulse thudded. I closed the laptop, reopened it, told myself maybe it was some group chat taken out of context. But the feed kept coming. Different timestamps, different emojis, different nights. Miss you. Counting down until the next one. And then, he never checks, he's too busy. That one wasn't funny. It was strategy. The compass lay beside the keyboard, its needle trembling in the blue light of the screen. I pressed the cold metal flat to my palm, as if I could anchor myself there, as if an object could keep me from spinning out of orbit. When she came in with her hair still damp from the shower, she glanced at the laptop. I snapped it shut too late. Her eyes narrowed for just a flicker before she plastered on a smile. Long day, she asked, drying her hair with the towel. The words hung there, but the silence after was heavier. She sensed something had shifted. I saw it in the way she suddenly moved slower, like she was rehearsing her next lines. I didn't mention what I saw. Not yet. Instead, I asked something ordinary what she wanted for dinner. She laughed, a brittle sound. You always worry about the little things, she said, brushing past me. Her phone was clutched tight in her hand, thumb hovering like she was ready to erase something before I noticed. That night I opened the tablet deliberately. If the first glimpse had been an accident, the second was confirmation. The messages weren't fragments. They were maps. Directions pointing away from me towards someone else, threaded with jokes about my questions, my suspicions, my effort to keep balance. The more I read, the less it looked like distraction and the more it resembled coordination. The secondary plotline came into focus. A line about keeping the account separate, another about paper trails. I knew financial language well enough to see it wasn't banter. They were moving something, money, opportunities, maybe both, behind my back, and the hotel wasn't a splurge. It was cover. I didn't rage. I didn't storm. I catalogued. Each screenshot folded into the map folder, each phrase a breadcrumb. My chest was hollow, but my mind was steady. When she came to bed, she slid close, looping an arm over my chest. "You feel far away tonight," she whispered. I stared at the compass on the nightstand, the needle trembling toward nowhere. For the first time, I realized it wasn't broken. It was honest. The morning after the tablet, my inbox pinged with a vendor attestation from a partner firm on our rollout. Routine enter line jumped out. Reimbursement, hospitality, client sponsor, M.Har. My name sat there like a fingerprint. I didn't leave. Before I could ping legal, a second email arrived, a stipend spreadsheet from the partner's manager, CCing me. "Please confirm routing matches the pre-approved bank." The last 4 digits were precise and familiar. They matched the old account and the stray printout, the one labeled guest incidentals of pre-auth. I pressed the silver compass into my palm until it left the crescent. I wanted it to be clerical noise. It wasn't. This wasn't just secrecy at home, it was a wire threaded into my career. I called compliance. "Fight the sponsorship under my name," I said, keeping my tone even. I didn't authorize hospitality or supply routing. The director asked if someone could have reused a template. Templates don't conjure exact bank digits. We ended with "will review artifacts." In the partner portal, a receipt had been attached, cropped and hurried. The data overlapped our hotel weekend. The description read, "client-facing offset." No location, just initials and a memo designed to look legitimate from 10 feet away. If auditors paired it with my calendar, best case I look careless, worst case complicit. She texted me a photo of a sandwich with a cheerful caption. I set the phone face down and watched the compass on my desk quiver whenever the A-track kicked on. By mid-afternoon, legal wanted a statement, involvement timeline, any personal connection to the pay. I typed carefully, no approval, no meeting. No hospitality arranged or attended, and after a pause added, no personal relationship with any beneficiary. At home she was at the table, sleeves pushed up, a spreadsheet open. She angled the screen a degree, the movement you make when you don't want to look like you're hiding. The compass sat in the ball with our keys. I lifted it and let it swing once. "Odd issue at work," I said. "A reimbursement tied to my name." She breathed a soft laugh that wasn't joy. "You overthink," she said, touching my wrist. "It'll sort itself out." That line used to calm me. Now I filed beside, "just follow me." I built a timeline, hotel check-in, the old bank digits, the stipend email, the receipt date. I screenshotted each step, labeled the folder north, and backed it up. In the gap between autosaves, I pictured an auditor I've never met tracing a ruler through my month and underlining me in red. Licenses, clients, reputation, things you carry like thin class balance on a memo I didn't write. Before bed, she spun the compass and smiled. "You still keep this close?" I watched the needle try to settle. "It helps me remember what north is," I said. She gave a small practice laugh and set it down, pointing somewhere past her shoulder. I didn't sleep. I rehearsed the language that keeps careers from cracking, acted in good faith, discovered irregularities, initiated remediation. While the house murmured its ordinary sounds, the stakes redrew themselves. She hadn't only misled me. She placed a bet with my name on the slip. In the morning, I sent legal the north folder and CC'd compliance. Then I put the compass in my pocket, not as a keepsake, but as a fixed point. Whatever came next, I'd need something that didn't move when everything else did. The reveal didn't come from her lips. It came sideways, carried by someone with no agenda, no reason to protect or destroy me. A junior analyst, fresh out of grad school, nervous around executives, joined me late in the office. We worked quietly until he broke the silence with small talk. "Funny thing," he said, adjusting his tie like he regretted speaking already. "I saw your wife at the partner's reception last week. I didn't realize you two were merging accounts personally too." I froze. Not because of the words themselves, but because of the casual way he dropped them. He had no idea he was delivering a verdict. My pen slipped, clattered across the desk, and with it the compass keychain tumbled from my pocket. It hit the floor and spun in lazy circles until it pointed nowhere. I didn't move to pick it up. The analyst must have sensed he'd wandered into something private. He stammered, cheeks burning. I thought it was nice seeing familiar faces outside of work. Then he buried himself in spreadsheets, desperate to rewind the moment. But there was no rewinding. The map I'd been sketching in fragments now lit up all at once. She hadn't been careless. She had been deliberate, walking into our partner's events, weaving her presence into business threads, pulling strings that tied straight back to me. I excused myself early, claiming fatigue. On the drive home, headlights blurred into streaks, the road having beneath tires I barely registered. Her voice echoed in fragments, "Don't overthink. Just follow me." The words twisted now, not guidance but command. And the compass her gift wasn't a charm. It was a joke. A token given so she could watch me walk circles while she carved her own path. At home, she greeted me with warmth, too polished, too smooth. She asked about my day, and I answered in clipped syllables, watching her eyes. They flicked once toward her phone screen down on the counter before locking back on mine. She filled silence with chatter about errands, recipes, and casual plans. But all I heard was the analyst's voice, replayed in loop, merging accounts personally too. I didn't accuse her. Not yet. I catalogued the reveal with the other's hotel slip, bank digits, stipend memo, synced messages. But unlike the rest, this wasn't digital, wasn't fragile paper that could be shredded or wiped. This was spoken into the air by someone with no stake, no script. Irrefutable because it was unplanned. That night, I left the compass on the nightstand, its needle quivering toward nothing. She picked it up, smiled, and placed it carefully back beside me, like she still owned the meaning of it. I turned off the light without a word. In the dark, I understood the cruel simplicity of it all. I had been tracing her clues like a riddle. She had been networking my downfall in plain daylight, counting on the fact that no one would ever tell me. And she almost got away with it. Almost. I didn't announce anything. The decision felt like a quiet door swinging shut in a hallway where the lights were already off. After the analyst slip, the map in my head stopped looping and drew a straight line exit. Not dramatic. Not punitive. Just the only direction left that didn't twist. I started with the small, practical endings that don't make noise. Location showing off. Card sessions signed out. The shared tablet unlinked from my accounts. I exported the map and north folders to an encrypted drive and slid it into the sleeve of my laptop. I forwarded the compliance thread to my personal archive and set a com out of office that said everything without saying anything. Limited availability, referred to counsel for vendor questions. She moved around the kitchen, humming to herself and tasting sauce from a wooden spoon. She was good at ordinary. I matched her tempo with small words, yes, fine, later so the air stayed level. When she laughed at something on her phone and tilted it away, I watched her thumb hover over the screen like a shield. I didn't feel anger anymore. I felt distance, clean and unsticky, like stepping out of a shirt that had been damp for months. I brought the travel bag with essentials out from the closet. The zipper teeth clinked like a metronome. Inside, 2 shirts, a sweater, chargers, the binder with my documentation, spare cards, a slim folder with copies of IDs. No keepsakes. Keepsakes argue. Essentials don't. Timing mattered. She'd be at a class that evening, stretching and light cardio, the kind of routine she posted about when she wanted to look focused. She told me as much while spooning sauce into a bowl, eyes flecking out to gauge whether I'd ask follow-ups. I only nodded. I might stay late, she added. Don't wait up. The phrasing landed familiar. Convenient too. When the door shut behind her, the house became a studio with one scene left to stage. I walked room to room not to collect memories, but to make sure there were no loose cords tied to me, no stray logins, no auto payments routed through my pocket, no files that could be recut to fit a nice narrative. The quiet felt heavier than before, but not unfriendly, just accurate. In the bedroom, I emptied my pockets onto the dresser. Wallet, phone, car fob. I set the silver compass last. It lay on the glass tray she used for perfume, the needle quivering under the ceiling fan. I tapped the edge once. It spun, then slowed, then drifted off north like it had given up choosing. I left it there. She'd see it. She'd understand the sentence I wasn't writing. Keys next. I slid the spare to the condo off the ring and placed it beside the compass. Not a message. Logistics. Access for movers later, appraisers if it came to that. I kept the keys I needed. Leaving everything is theatre, leaving exactly what the moment requires is strategy. On the kitchen counter, an empty space where I know could go. I tried a line in my head, something like I would be a misled audience anymore and set it down without ink. Words would pull me back into her lighting. Absence would do what language couldn't, refuse the script. Before I lifted the bag, I opened the fridge and took a bottle of water. The cap creaked. I listened to the small sound and filed it as the last domestic noise I'd own here. Then I powered my phone off, not to hide, but to opt out of the push notifications she called love. The hallway mirror showed a man carrying only what he intended to carry. That was new. I stood there a moment longer than I needed to, not sentimental, just taking inventory of a face that finally matched the decisions. The elevator hummed. On the ground floor, the evening air had that clean sap you get after a light rain. I walked to the car without rushing. A couple argued softly near the mailboxes about a package that didn't arrive. Their frustration felt distant, like a radio in another room. At the curb, I hesitated once. Not from doubt, habits flex right before they break. I pressed the fob, loaded the bag, then sat behind the wheel. For a second I looked up at the balcony, half expecting to see her there, phone in hand, performing concern for a camera that wasn't rolling. Nothing moved. I pulled away. Not far, just enough. A business hotel off the highway, neutral sheets, a door that closed with a heavy engineered click. I aligned the binder on the desk, opened my laptop, and typed one email to myself with a subject that would be easy to find later, North Final. Then I closed the lid and let the quiet expand. She texted an hour later, first a photo of a smoothie, then "Are you good?" bubble, a beat with an edge. The phone stayed dark in my bag. No read receipts. No dots. No scene. I lay back and stared at the seam where wall met ceiling. The compass was still on her dresser. North was wherever I pointed my feet next. Tomorrow, the practical machinery would start mail forwards, meetings, paperwork built with precise language. Tonight, the confrontation was complete. I had vanished. Not to hurt her. Not to teach her. To stop standing where I could be staged. The unraveling reached me in fragments, never directly from her. A voicemail from compliance confirming they had escalated the stipend issue to audit. An email from legal noting irregularities now afloat with her signature attached, not mine. A partner quietly asking if I had been aware of the duplicate reimbursements. Each update landed with the cool precision of paperwork, not gossip. And that was the point. What she had built wasn't just personal betrayal. It was infrastructure, and when it cracked, the collapse carried her name, not mine. I didn't watch it unfold in real time. I didn't lurk on her feeds or call mutual friends. The news travels in the undercurrent. A colleague mentioned her credit card had been frozen mid-checkout at a boutique. Another muttered that her joint initiative she pitched had been blacklisted. By then, compliance had tied loose threads together, transfers in her account, hotel receipts coded as business spend, her attempts to layer personal indulgence under professional cover. What she thought were clever disguises became evidence logged in red folders. I kept my distance, silent as promised. My only move was precision, ensuring my documentation lined up, every timestamp notarized by digital trail, every memo archived. Where she had turned spontaneity into a mask, I turned absence into armor. The travel bag at my side held only what I needed to know more, no less. My life narrowed to essentials, and the simplicity made the fallout sharper in contrast. She tried to reach me, not with pleas but with soft, neutral texts. "Can we talk? This isn't what you think." I powered the device once a day to check logistical emails, never hers. Silence wasn't revenge. It was refusal to enter the courtroom she wanted to stage. Her words had been tools. I had no interest in being a prop again. The compass lingered in my mind, not the object itself, but its placement. On the dresser, pointing nowhere, left is the final punctuation mark. I imagined her picking it up, maybe laughing it off, maybe turning it in her hand at night when calls went unanswered and auditors pressed questions she couldn't finesse. That was her north now, a spinning needle with no fixed point, a reminder that she'd mucked herself into a corner. Friends whispered that she looked hollow, cornered, suddenly quiet in rooms where she once performed loudest. One said she'd been seen rifling through folders at a cafe, paper spilling, face pale. Another mentioned her voice cracking when she asked if anyone had heard from him. They meant me, I didn't answer, and they didn't press. Distance is gravity when you hold it steady. In the end, her downfall wasn't loud. It was the slow choke of access denied, accounts frozen, trust revoked, her name trailing in emails with phrases like pending investigation. I didn't need to testify. The paper trail spoke more clearly than I ever could. My part was already finished the night I left the compass behind. I didn't celebrate. I didn't mourn. I packed a second sweater into the travel bag, booked a one-way flight under my own account, and left the hotel key on the desk. There was no destination, only forward. She had gambled with my name and lost hers in the process. And as for me, North wasn't on a compass anymore. It was simply wherever she wasn't.